Right, the going to be late.
No, Carson's on the Zoom, but I was hoping someone else would show up, so I wouldn't have to sit up here by myself. Do you know
I think Elizabeth is going to be in person.
Okay.
We've got Carson and Donna on the Zoom right now.
for another minute?
I was planning on being there and then I was like, oh no, I'm gonna be way late. So I hopped on real quick.
No, thanks for joining, Donna.
Well, sorry I'm not there. I'm sure, seeing my very stressed out face would have put a delightful smile on everyone there, but
I neglected to edit the map that you see up there. That northeasternmost bullet point is the item that got taken off the agenda, so.
Okay, well, we can go ahead and get started. Is everything going technology wise?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. I will now call to order the April 24th, 2023 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Hillary, would you call the roll for us, please? Oh, I'm sorry, the time is 5:46 p.m.
Thank you. Grant,
here,
Brown, Thompson, Steiger, Samuelson,
Here.
Forrest,
Here.
Reagan.
Here. Item number 3 is the approval of tonight's agenda. Any changes or additions to the agenda for tonight? Hearing nothing, I'll entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Samuelson, a motion.
Grant, second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item number 4 is the approval of the April 10th, 2023 minutes of the regular Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Are there any changes or additions to the April 10th, 2023 minutes? Hearing nothing, I will entertain a motion to approve the April 10th, 2023 minutes of the regular Planning and Zoning Commission.
Stand up for the motion.
Grant, second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I want to welcome all the guests that are here with us tonight in person, and anyone who's joined us on Zoom as well. Are there any members of the public who are here and wanted to make a comment on an item other than something that's on the agenda for tonight? Hearing nothing, we'll move on to item number 6. Item number 6 is a public hearing and recommendation on a zoning amendment to change 76.4 acres at 250 Beardsley Street from AR Agricultural Reserve to R160 Single Family Residential. I will open the public hearing at 5:49 p.m. And Elliot, would you brief us on this item, please?
Yep, so we got the request from this about 2 weeks ago. The address for the horse barn there is 250 Beardsley Street, and that's just for the northernmost half of that. Let's use that as the geographic locator. The request is for that rezoning to be straight R160. It's not PUD zoning, just the standard single family residential dimension on our future land use map that we approved at the end of last year. It's shown as low density residential, which would call for any of the R1 classifications to be approved with minimal review. So the intent, I believe, is to develop single family residential subdivision, and we're entertaining concepts from the development team right now. I believe we have somebody here from that side for inquiry if need be. Otherwise, happy to answer any questions.
Is the applicant or anyone on behalf of the applicant here tonight who would like to speak?
Thank you, Dean Roger with Civil Design Vantage here on behalf of Settle Ridge LLC. Brian McMurray's also president tonight. I don't really have much to add. These guys are planning to develop this as with single family homes, and as Ellie mentioned, it's in accordance with the comp plan, and just letting you know we're here if you have any questions.
This is we saw a kind of concept site plan for this a couple months ago, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, still the same concept as you've seen. Thank you.
Any other questions from members of the commission? Hearing nothing, I will close the public. Oh, yeah, sorry. Anyone else here tonight wanted to speak on item number 6? Thanks, AJ. No, thank you. Okay, hearing nothing, I will close the public hearing at 5:51 p.m. and will now deliberate as the commission on item number 6.
Okay. My standpoint.
No, I didn't have any additional questions based on the information that staff presented. Donna or Carson, any questions or any thoughts on this one?
Seems pretty straightforward to me.
Would you like to make a comment, Mia?
Yes.
I'll reopen the public hearing then. Go ahead. We'll just need,
My name is Richa Michael. I live off of Beardsley, right across the street from Doc Ron's land. My question is it already been platted out yet to where some of us haven't noticed it or known where to go to look for the plating?
We have not received an official plat submission at this time.
Okay, my concern is when it does become platted out, the outlets that would be possibly coming out onto Beardsley Street.
vehicles.
for vehicles, traffic, and how it's gonna be platted out, if it's gonna be a cul-de-sac in that area. Or there's gonna be outlets from that residential area out to Beardsley. And where will the outlets, if there will be, where will they be located at?
I can speak on that a little bit. I think Dean is a little bit more versed in it, but fundamentally, the things that are identified from a design standpoint are related to the engineering side of things, and there are state requirements about where those streets are supposed to line up across the street from existing drive accesses. And I think Dean could speak in more detail about it, but generally, when they lay out plats like this, they try to line those up as best as possible.
Okay, so my question is, how many roads do you think you might be planting to come out of that area? Two. Yes. More west, more east, because Wakanda Drive is right across the street from it. And unfortunately, at this point in time, I'm living right there off of Beardsley. The traffic is pretty much like the highway here. It's very busy. We have a school right there at the top of the hill. And a lot of kids walk home. And I'm more concerned, as a person that's been there for 29 years, I'm more concerned about kids and the traffic that's gonna be coming out of that residential area.
Sure.
Okay, the other question I have is do you plan on putting in like townhomes, apartments, or anything like that? It's gonna be strict homes.
Single family homes.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. Any other comments from the public on this before we close the public hearing? Hearing nothing, we'll close the public hearing again at 5:54 p.m. Any further deliberation from the commission on this one?
With the addition of some of these other new developments, have there been any traffic issues that have been reported? Because I mean, I drive my child to Lakewood every morning and I know that it's busy.
Yep.
And there are kids that walk along the shoulder and
From a traffic standpoint, we did do a traffic study of Beardsley, basically throughout the entire community. It's kind of split into Beardsley East and West, so east would be 28 to city limits on the east side, west would be 28 to 50th. With recommendations that both be built out to a 3-lane cross section in the future. And we have those CIP planned out, but not budgeted. So it's improvements that the city knows are needed. And we will work on them as we have the dollars available to do that.
As far as general traffic concerns, all day, every day. It's when everybody wants to go to one spot at the same time, traffic's a problem.
I fear people trying to turn west out of this new development, any development over there there might be issues because right now, like I can only speak to there's a stop sign coming out of the Legacy. And then there's the stop signs up at Lakewood, and it does help mitigate things. And I worry that people are just going to zoom out quickly onto Beardsley to try to, I don't know, pull in
As-
front of somebody and it's gonna.
Part of our review of things, there'll be discussion at a city level of are there more traffic controls needed on Beardsley as these developments come in. So far with our developments going east of the bridge or west of the bridge, we've not broached that yet, but I mean, those are a stop sign and stop control is always an option as more traffic happens if that's needed.
Shadow Town will start to get filled out too much, yeah. We haven't even seen really much traffic coming out of that yet, but with this parcel coming online and then the parcel even further to the west.
There's gonna be a lot
There'll
of
be
development.
those conversations.
Yep.
Any other deliberation on this item? Hearing nothing, I'll entertain a motion to approve the zoning amendment to change 76.4 acres at 250 Beardsley Street from AR Agricultural Reserve to R 160 Single Family Residential.
Forced motions.
Samuelson second.
Hillary, would you call the roll, please?
Samuelson,
Aye.
Forrest,
Yes.
Thompson,
Aye.
Reagan.
Aye.
Grant.
Aye.
Thanks, everyone, for your work on that item. Item number 7 is a public hearing and recommendation on a zoning amendment related to the facade material classifications in the architectural standards. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing on this item at 5:58 PM. Elliot, will you brief? Oh, Luke, you're gonna brief us.
I'll handle this one. Thank you. So a lot of info in your packet here. I'll try to be brief with it, and happy to answer questions. Essentially, we received a request from one of our hotel projects, to take a second look at our architectural standards. That request was related to the design that they had put together, which included a high percentage of what's called exterior insulated finishing systems. I'll call that EIFS from now going forward. But it's essentially a panel system that has a stucco look for it on the outside, and then is an insulated panel, so provides a lot of good energy efficiency ratings on buildings. Our code considers that EIFS system to be primarily a class 3 with most modern EIFS systems. There are some older ones that would be considered class 4, but through this process, we've learned that those are not typically used anymore. So the request was for the city to consider the EIFS system as a class 2 material. We did take that request to city council before we brought it to you because we wanted direction from council as to whether or not we should even consider anything, rather than taking them to you guys first. And so council's direction last Thursday was to consider something, but try to find some kind of compromise situation between EIFS as a class 2 material, which would allow it to be 100% of any commercial building, and what our current standards are. So there's some other info in the staff report. If you'd like me to run through, I can, talking about some research we did on other metro communities. And just, we've included that all in the agenda packet for you to peruse through. But essentially, and again, remember, we were directed council Thursday night to come up with something. So I kind of came up with something on short notice, sent that out to our hotel developers, not only the Fairfield Inn folks, but another hotel developer looking in town. But we had to get this out to you. So they have some thoughts as well. So it's not like this is a agreed upon. They definitely are 100% on board with what I proposed. So this is more of a starting point more than anything. Really, I think what we're trying to do here is come up with a scenario that allows the first story of any commercial building to follow the current commercial standards, which would allow most commercial construction in Norwalk to continue to be our current architectural standards and the qualities that we want, and then somehow lessening that for the upper levels of a building. The way it's written right now would be reducing that to what the apartment standards are for the upper levels, and that was just me rationalizing, well, we have a lot of the buildings we have in town right now are apartment buildings that are above 1 story for the most part. So, if we like the look of our apartment buildings, that would be one way to look at it, is say, well, let's use our apartment standards for the upper story of any commercial building in town. Certainly, I think there's some thoughts that if we're requiring more on the lower levels of commercial buildings, maybe we should require even less on the upper levels of the commercial buildings. And I think that's a fair point to discuss. But, at the end of the day, we've got hotels that are trying to fit within town in the budget and, trying to make their projects work financially. And every requirement the city puts on any project, whether that's architectural or otherwise, usually comes with a dollar figure. So it's trying to negotiate that aspect of the city requirements with the desire to have some amenities in town that the city wants, with the developer's ability to bring such project to town. So again, as it's proposed right now, it would be keep the standards for the first floor of any building, and then letting the upper stories be 40% class 1 and 2 materials, 60% class 3 and 4, with 4% not to exceed 10% of the facade area. And then I added a sentence in there to kind of define what first floor means in the context of this, meaning that the city's field house building that's technically 35 feet tall, it's all one level. So in a scenario where we had a big mass building that was all one level, it wouldn't be able to, go with the lesser standards. So it's really just a building that has multiple floors. When you get up to those second, third, fourth floors, you can go to a different material. So I'll stop talking, answer questions. And I know we also have our folks from the hotels here that can give their perspective, which is good as well.
Yeah, you can see us.
Okay, and we've got folks on Zoom too.
Sure. Who would you like to speak first, Ryan?
Yeah, Mitch, do you want to start?
Yeah, I absolutely can. My name is Mitch Bushkoff. I am the architect in charge of the Fairfield Inn and Suites going in over at the Hughes Century Crossing plat. Again, I'd like to thank the committee for considering the amendment of these standards. We do understand that these standards are important to maintaining a cohesive aesthetic throughout the city. We appreciate the opportunity to be part of the conversation and also to come into a compromise on these items. With that, I think one of the main things I think we really want to put out there when we're looking at mid-range hotels is that the most mid-range hotels rely very heavily on EIFS. And I do have a couple of examples of these brand hotels that we have designed and have been designed and that are prototype to the brand, if you don't mind me sharing my screen.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Just 1 second here, Mitch. Let me, I think I might need to give you authorization to do that.
Sure.
Just making codes.
Yeah, I think that should work.
The other computer, actually.
Quick question, I guess, for Luke. So does the town center designation have if this was in a regular if this was in a regular C2 district and not TC, would the requirements be different?
The requirements are different, but none of them are really that helpful for the hotel projects. So to clarify that real quick, in our review of metro standards that we did, in some instances, like the C3, we line up pretty well with other communities where we allow it's like a 50-50. But in our C2 and our TC districts, we would be some of the more strict communities as far as how much we would allow.
Mitch, you should be able to share that.
Yep. Yep. So again, and I'll just run through a couple of just the main brands that we have designed, and especially some of the buildings that we have designed. All these buildings that you're going to see, all these brands are prototype hotels, which basically means that a hotel brand provides you with prototype drawings that you cannot venture off of lest you lose the brand. You can venture off of a little bit, but not, they don't typically like to do it, and you need to get approval with them, which is typically why when you see these hotels, they predominantly look the same, because they are typically built to the standards of the brand. So this is for example, Fairfield Inn
Mitch,
and
we
Suites.
can't see
This,
your screen.
I'm sorry.
You can't see our screen.
Oh, you cannot. Okay, it said it was sharing.
And thanks for joining us.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I forgot to hit share. How's that?
Wait a second, thing catch it, click to share.
Apologize. Apologies for that.
No problem.
Apologies for that. So as I was saying, this is the Fairfield Inn and Suites. This is pretty close to the same prototype that is going in over at the corner of Hughes and Chatham. As you can see, predominantly EIFS, a large swath of EIFS is what's being incorporated here. This is a Fairfield Inn that we just designed over in West Milwaukee, not too far away from the American Family Field Ballpark. So there's one example, and I apologize, the Zoom.
Mitch, so is that banded down low and then that kind of protruding part we've got to assume either a stairwell or something else on the, is that all ephes or is that masonry?
It's entirely ephes. The gray piece that you see here is entirely ephes. It's just a different color ephes. All the ephes banding that you see, all completely ephes. The only part of this of this prototype standard that is not ephes out of the box standard is there is at the entry levels where you're going to see your guests mostly interacting with the facade. That's all stone. But yeah, all that is ephes. And then we'll move on to this is a Hilton True that was just designed right out of prototype, which is as I understand also going into being proposed to go into the city of Norwalk as well. This is out of Lake Delton, Wisconsin. This is one we just did. As you can see, primarily all ephes. Everything you see here is ephes, even the multicolored bands that you see here. ephes can come in all colors. It's not just a lot of times it gets this name of, oh, you can only do earthy colors, or it can come in a large swath of colors. So this is all Hilton True prototype is incorporates a heavy amount of ephes as well. This is the Hampton Inn Suites in Lake Delton, Wisconsin that we have done. It is also this is more of kind of the compromise that that Luke was actually talking about, of maybe applying a class 1 or 2 material to the base and your brick or stone, but up above it's entirely ephes. And this is also, again, everything you're seeing here is straight prototype out of the box prototype. And again, the more you venture away from prototype drawings when it comes to mid-range hotels, the more likely you are to lose the brand. There is some leeway that you can have there, and there are some special circumstances, but typically, obviously, with those special circumstances come budgetary detriments. So then I'll move on to Holiday Inn Suites, another one, their prototype. All these are mid-range. This is a little bit, I think Holiday Inn Suites is probably more of a lower range, but they incorporate a heavy amount of ephes as well. And then we'll start actually getting and looking at some of the higher brands, which is, you'll have your lofts, and understand this is a little bit of a taller building that you might ever see in Norwalk, but a lofts and these higher name brands do occasionally come in and do a lower rise building, and it might look like these are really flashy materials because they've incorporated lights into them and uplighting and just a splash of some metal into their porte-cochere. But if you were to zoom in, you would see that it's actually, you can see the banding of it. It's all ephes. It's all ephes banding. They had the V grooves in there. And this is a higher, a loft is a higher brand. And then moving on to Best Western. This is a Best Western, I believe in Texas, I believe it is. Actually, no, I'm sorry, this is in Iowa. This is in Coralville, Iowa. Best Western, this is even one of their plus hotels, also incorporates a heavy amount of ephes. The list goes on and on. I'm not going to sit here and go through every hotel brand. I think it's just understanding that even at the compromise that Luke has put forward at 60% of ephes, all of the prototypes that I've gone through here would require remediation to that. We would have to change around the prototype. We'd have to change around the mass into the building, and we'd have to change around the materials and have to get it approved with the brand. And that's all brand hotels that were to come in. And then, so I'll stop sharing here because that's just, did anybody want to review any of the other, any photos I went through?
You go back to that Hampton Inn that had the class 1, class 2 down low.
Yeah. This one right here.
Yeah, so Luke, is this what we're looking for? Or are we looking for something a little bit higher, you think, than this?
I think it would be something more like that. What we put together was just trying to cobble together two pieces of our code that kind of made sense. But that's I believe the direction that council was wanting us to move towards was some compromise that, we're trying to thread the needle between wanting to make sure most of our commercial buildings that would come in will be meeting the standards that we have in place today, while providing the flexibility to allow some of these desired uses that maybe have their brand requirements and these other requirements. So it's trying to figure out, how do we do that, right? And so my first blush guess of it on a Friday morning to get you guys all something to consider was mashing two pieces of our code together that seemed to make sense. So I think there's certainly room to tweak and adjust that. I think there's lots of rationale you can come up with that. The other thing you could do that I kind of considered as a potential option for how this would be worded, but I kind of pulled back from it because in zoning, you want to try to treat everything the same as much as you can. But I do believe we could write in this that specifically that these upper story material requirements are only for a hotel.
Sure.
So we could tweak some of that red language in the ordinance to really laser focus it on the type of use. In general, I like to avoid doing that because then we have to answer the question when some other 3-story user comes in and says, well, why can't we do it that way the hotel got to? And then we gotta give some rationale why, which we can, because, fundamentally things are different, but in general, we try not to.
So
And again, I'll state that, if this is something that the compromise is more leaning towards, this is what we had talked about before of providing class 1 and 2 materials on the base and then leaving the remaining 2nd through 4th stories as we propose them, which is entirely EFS, which is what this facade is incorporating.
So Mitch, if you had to put percentages to that example that we're looking at, could you try to do that for us?
Yeah, you bet. Are we looking for percentages of the entire facade per floor?
I guess I'm thinking it's more than just percentages. I like class 1 and class 2 down low like this one shows, but I guess
Mhm.
I'm gonna want to see a certain percentage of class 1 and class 2 up higher. I think that's kind of, I was looking at like the downtown, the Holiday Inn Express, south of downtown and Gray Station. I know Gray Station has some higher architectural requirements, because I've done a lot of projects in that area. There's a little bit more higher level materials there. And I guess for the ownership group, your project just north of Wells Fargo, that's all class 1, class 2 down low. There's some horizontal siding bands on the upper kind of pieces. Is that horizontal siding considered a free material for us?
It would be a 3 or 4.
It's probably a fiber
It's
composite.
actual wood.
Oh, is it wood? Okay, there you go.
And I would tell you that's, although I appreciate the comparison, that was an adaptive reuse.
I know. I worked on
Yeah, okay, yeah, so that was all tilt up concrete, we just got to the inside and frankly, I wish we'd done more EFS and covered up some of that concrete that we painted. Yeah, that building was different than a ground up. There's a lot more leniency from a brand on an adaptive reuse than there is a ground up hotel.
So this kind of goes into the deliberation piece, but
Yeah,
you're
I guess
thinking
so.
of moving
Well, it's
away
more
from the.
questions from staff. I guess more dialogue there and with the ownership. I guess I've got a hard time giving up just EFS everything above level. At grade level. I think
You got to keep in mind that, one, this is a mid-grade hotel. 2, we're trying to hit a budget. And 3, EFS. And I still can't wrap my brain around why people think EFS is a class 3 material and class 4 material. Like, I get it. And Luke had made a comment about, the architect opinion they had that, the standards of EFS that come out of the manufacturing place could be different based on who the manufacturer, distributors, or whatever. But that's true across all material types. And we can create beautiful textures with EVIS. We can create different patterns of EVIS. You start putting 3, 4 materials on a building, and you start to have other problems which are more in line with the problems you talked about the old EVIS, about water mitigation issues and flashing and long-term maintenance costs, and all these things that create long-term challenge that could effectively help building deteriorate faster when we have so many transitions to different materials. So we're trying to create, a hotel on budget, which is difficult in today's environment. I mean, all the hotels that we had sent out previously, there's only one of those hotels built since post-COVID. The building material cost, the same stone that's on that first floor of that building, that used to be $15 a foot, is now $25 to $45 a foot. EVIS has gone up, it's doubled since COVID. So there's a supply chain issues on other materials and those kind of things that we're dealing with as well. So we would like to, continue our we'd love to be, 100% EVIS above that first floor, and we can create the texture, create the design elements. Even if you want us to add some lights, things that are cost efficient, that create some architectural appeal to that EVIS, we can certainly look at doing some of those things. But general materials are, we like to stick with what is very standard.
You'd have to stay within the parameters of with the Fairfield or whoever.
Correct.
Like you talk about like making different textures, but you'd still have to get approval from them before.
Not in colors. I mean,
Correct. I can handle that. Yes. Anytime that you make a change to any of the standards, be it material, be it massing of a prototype design, that you have to get it in front of them and you have to pass it through them. And typically they are the notoriously sticklers for venturing off of their standards too incredibly much. So yeah, that it's safe to say that it's a large challenge changing around materials on a facade and getting it by a brand. You have to have a defendable reason.
What's
Pretty sure
the,
zoning of whatever the requirements would be a defendable reason in my mind. So. I guess a question for Luke, but the way you've got this written, Luke, so you've got a C2, any story about the first floor shall incorporate class 1 or class 2 materials together composing at least 40% of the facade area. So does that read that anything above that first floor should have 40% class 1 and class 2?
That's how, yeah.
Okay.
And that 40% is taken from our apartment standards. So.
And again, just so we're understanding, even at that 40%, 40 to 60, if it and doing 60% EFS only, that would prompt us to get in front of Marriott with that, or getting in front of a brand.
what's the standard life for EFS material?
Life,
Yeah, how often
There's
are
a
you replacing?
40-year
it?
warranty on EVIS, or 30-year.
I think it ranges between 20 to 30, but it's are you asking like how much maintenance is required on the cladding?
Yes. Yeah, I'm thinking long-term, when you're comparing the different types of materials that we're looking at. Can you make an argument that EFS is any better than these
Well,
others?
I think stucco's a class 2 material. And EVIS performs substantially better than stucco, a lot less maintenance, you can power wash, you can do. I mean, EVIS, it handles water better, all those things. So even there's several class 2 materials that you guys have on your list that we could do, but I wouldn't do them just because EVIS is a better system, it's a better product.
Luke, do we have buildings around here that have the EFS?
Yeah, I mean, again, within the context of percentage wise of our code,
There are homes that have a form of EFS on it. My old one did. I think there was a period of time, maybe I'm stepping in and saying it wrong, but there was a period of time that there was EFS problems, and it was with the cold weather and fluid or moisture would get behind, and then there was a mold and all of that. And if I'm not up to date on this, but that's all changed and now it's different products. I think that EFS has come a ton, and in some situations it's prettier than some of the ugly brick or some of the wood that they put out. So That's my opinion. I think it can be done well. I'm not saying I would prefer to see the bright pink, bright blue, bright yellow on my hotel across the street, but I do think a lot of this comes from the old EFS and it hasn't been updated. Maybe somebody else can speak about that, but that's my opinion.
I'll speak on that because that was one of our defendable opinions. I agree with you completely. And so does most of the architectural field. EFS back in the 80s and 90s, especially in your marine-based climate areas, performed so incredibly poorly. And then all it took was the implementation of a drainage assembly. And now it performs just exceptionally well. Not only that, it also incorporated a base of rigid insulation, which gives an even longer warranty to the facade, and it also gives some green element also to the cladding, which I think is really important to the entire built environment. It's a lot more of a green material than you'll get out of a stucco or other materials comparable to that.
Mitch, can you explain the drainage system and how that works compared to stone and, some other things? Because it's very similar to what we would do with cladded stone or brick or whatever, right?
Yeah, so basically, we use a piece of base flashing and a drainage assembly at the bottom of all EFS. And then when I say the bottom, it's at all windows, window sills, window heads. Basically, a piece of metal flashing is put underneath a rigid insulation board, and then you can apply some sort of weather barrier, whether that be fluid applied, think of like a spray on like hard fluid applied that would allow water to drain down, hit the flashing and weep out. Basically that wasn't incorporated into old EFS and now it is. So think flashing, think rigid insulation, and also then fluid applied membrane that all works together to wick water out of the assembly. And I'm not sure. I know Luke, when we had sent our letter, and I actually might have it here if I could share my screen. I can show a diagram of EFS. In the event that would be helpful, if that explanation wasn't helpful enough.
Yeah, you're still sharing, so go ahead if you'd like.
Okay, I think I'll have to reshare another screen here. Sorry. Oh, I don't think that's. Yeah, sorry. Hold on here. Luke, do you have that available? I can grab it right here too. Just give me a second.
Yeah, I can send it to Elliot real quick.
Okay.
These guys have a camera up there or no?
We don't. We used to.
Yeah.
Where did that go?
Whoever gets to it first. Sorry about this.
It's buried.
It's just got a fantastic comparison of EFS.
Yeah, and it's buried about 5 folders deep for me. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I got it ready.
All right.
I just got to share my screen. Can you guys see okay?
We can.
Okay, so these are the 2 exhibits that we had sent along with our letter of petition. So basically I'll only focus on the current generation EFS. So yeah, basically you have a piece of, starting from the outside, you have your coating, and then you have your fluid applied membrane, and then you have your rigid insulation that has some sort of, it can either be a mesh, it can be another fluid membrane, it can be a dimple board that basically, allows water to wick out, and then that hits a piece of flashing. What that flashing does is it is adhered to the to our sheathing via a piece of counter flashing. So if water ever would, in the rare cases, find its way behind behind this entire system, there's another fluid applied membrane that it would hit and then wick down and out the flashing. And this is what old EFIS, when you started seeing cracking and when you started seeing the mold and the discoloration, that is what was lacking. Does that make a little bit more sense?
Yeah, Mitch, can you? Obviously EFIS is has more components than like a stucco, which is a class 2 material, but essentially the exterior section of EFIS is almost stucco. Very similar.
I'm sorry, was there a question in there? It was kind of hard to hear you, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, the exterior piece of the EFIS, that people see and interact with.
Yep, the pebbled finish.
It's a very similar to stucco.
It is similar to stucco. It's a little bit thinner. One of the disadvantages to stucco is it's very heavy, and when stucco were to crack, it's hard set, so it usually requires a much larger price tag to maintain it. Whereas it might not crack as often, it is more susceptible to cracking than EFIS, because with EFIS you have a piece of your rigid insulation allows the facade to breathe and also expand and contract in your higher temperature swing areas like Iowa, where you experience very cold winters and very hot summers. So whereas the pebbled piece that is actually the exterior of the cladding is thinner, it performs better maintenance wise in that way.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions for the applicant's representatives or for Luke or Elliot before we close the public hearing?
Yeah, I got nothing on. So basically, language you put together is more or less what the developer's requesting is anything you've got in red basically says can be class 3 or 4 materials, 100% above level. No, one, correct?
I think that's where you guys are at now, right? You would
Yeah,
prefer
I
the
think-
upper levels to be this EFIS?
I think we can compromise without adding a deal killing number to the project, do that first floor in a stone material or class 1 or 2 material. We started talking about taking those materials beyond the first floor and start to have some serious problems from a budget perspective.
Question for you guys. So what does your typical entrance piece of a Fairfield look like? Would it look similar to, do you have any class 1 to propose?
Yeah, we had some around the front. I mean, similar to that first hotel we showed up, which basically was 100% except for right along the entry where generally the consumers are engaging with the exterior or the column that holds up the awning over the drive.
I did include the kind of front page of or the front facade of their proposal to us in the agenda packet materials as a proposed Norwalk site, and it is a stone kind of door front area over that the entryway. And then it goes to EFIS, kind of what they were mentioning, the high interaction standpoints were a higher quality material, so. Go up, it's the very first one of all the pictures.
I can share the material board on the screen too,
Yeah,
if
we
it
got
would make it easier.
We got it now.
Okay.
So yeah, the entryway there is where you've got the stone, and then that dark gray anthracite coal color is the kind of lower level EFIS material.
Mitch, just heads up, I'm gonna boot you off just so that I can share.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll stop sharing. You're good.
Any other questions? By the commissioner? Sure, if you could come up to the microphone and state your name and address.
I'm Ryan Huesman, 4809 Northwest 51st Street. I'm with the other hotel group. Thanks, Mitch, by the way, for including the other hotel brand of ours in your presentation. With the stucco, I guess, and what we were talking about in the life of stucco and how it can crack and everything. One thing I want to add is all major hotel flags and brands have, of course, that rigidness to upholding their brand standards. And so, for instance, with Hilton, we have a fixed renovation cycle management, basically as a list of every 7 years, we are doing renovations. And if we don't meet their standards, tough luck, you got to do it. And so it's also whatever comes first. So if obviously our stucco starts deteriorating year 4, we're going to have to replace it. And we have annual audits with all the major flags. So it's not just like an apartment complex where, oh, we're going to slack and we're too cheap. So we have big brother looking over us at all times. So, but yeah, I just thought I'd add that with all exterior and interior. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, we will close the public hearing at 6:33 p.m. And now we can begin our deliberations.
First.
Could you pull up the language that's proposed?
I guess I'm at the point, I'm class 1 and class 2 down low, below level 1. I think there's a discussion as to what we can do up above. I don't know that 100% EFS or 100% class 3 and 4 satisfies what I'm looking for. But
Well, and one thing to keep in mind with how our code works is windows, like we consider the whole facade. Some codes will cut out the windows. So windows and trim around windows and everything, those materials can count into that. So there's already a inherent percentage of those upper stories that'll be class 1 and 2, no matter what, because they have windows.
that's probably only still maybe 10, 15.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a huge percentage. I'm just,
And we have, if you look at the design of that footprint, I mean, we have architectural columns with different materials that are class 1 or 2. So, when you're designing this hotel, and I get the percentage, and I get, you want to keep to a grand standard, you also have to architecturally make these pieces all work together, look good, and then, then function together with flashing and those kind of things. So
I get you. I think there's a number of class 1, class 2 that we can do up above. I just don't know what that number is and what that looks like. And how we decide what that percentage is. It's hard to do without seeing a visual representation, right?
Sure.
You know what I mean?
well, that's the tricky thing with architectural standards in general is
Well,
someone can follow our standards to a T and make an ugly building, right? And I'm sure a good architect can violate our code completely and not follow it to a T and make a really cool building we'd want in town. So, yeah, it's always been a tricky thing working with architectural standards. So it's not the funnest part of our job.
If I may, oh, sorry. Thank you. I'm sorry. If I may add, at least I'm actually okay with this because it is not anything out of the ordinary when you go look at the same hotel in the same other place. So if this was completely like they were making the West Des Moines one or the Waukee one look like it is top, notch, and then we get the lower class one, then I'd have an issue. But it seems to be the same across the board. So it's not anything that we're being looked at. My wording's wrong. I just feel like it's across the board. So it's a standard that we know is going to be met.
are you talking about taking it all the way back to letting it be 100% EFS?
I'm just saying, I like the drawing. I don't mind it. I mean, that's what you see out west. That's what you see on Fluor. right there with the new one, right there by Johnny's. That's all that is. Same thing. It's just this, it's just the stone around the entryway.
Does that help your concerns, AJ, if we would make this specific to hotels like we mentioned?
I think it's gonna be tough, because how do you carve that out from C2? From that standpoint? As to what's that answer?
We could find a way. I mean,
You just put it in the architectural standards section and you'd add a phrase that says something like, or as modified herein, and then below that, put hotels can do X, Y, and Z, which makes me a little bit uneasy as the person who reviews all that stuff, but
That-
I can do it.
That airport Fairfield Inn by Johnny's is 100% class 1, class 2 down low. And then there's I don't think,
Not the one that's, that
Yeah.
one, but the one that just is newer is not.
one just south of Johnny's is.
I'm sorry, I'm talking about the one that's just down the street a little bit closer to the interchange.
You can get better street view than that. You can get right up to it. Go to the Fairfield. Further south.
Oh, that does have brick. I was thinking it was,
That was built in 2007.
And I don't think that. I don't think it's a Nietzsche house panel up top. I don't know if it's a real brick. or not.
that's a great view with the sun there.
Go back to the map. Map view.
You go up this road.
Yes, you can go actually into the parking lot if you want.
Yeah, and I think I've got a picture of that one in your packet as well.
You do, yeah.
Oh, it's here.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that one is brick lower and then all ephes up top.
yeah, that's
It's
what it
it's
looks
certainly
like.
a panel system. I mean, it's hard to tell specifically, so.
That's too much class 1, class 2 to me.
Like, to me, I do not aesthetically like this,
That's
that.
a bad color choice.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing about architectural standards. We're trying not to get into the aesthetics detail of it, right? Like, we're trying to, and that's why you focus on materials. It really, you're trying to focus on durability of materials and,
Well, this is still mentioned on-
No, I do think you look at the aesthetics of it. I mean, the aesthetics of what he showed is is nicer than that.
but our zoning code doesn't
Doesn't allow.
regulate the aesthetic of it. It doesn't say.
I know, but it comes into play, but you know, I always joke, it's like they say no jeans allowed. Well, a lot of times jeans are more expensive than wearing a pair of tan pants in there, you know, wherever you're going. It's just kind of how the deal goes anymore, but the one that's right there by Jordan Creek Mall. Not the Marriott right on the lake, but the little one that's kind of in the Dillard's parking lot, right there on that. Not the residence, it's that, yeah.
Yeah, that's class 1 down low. Class 1, class 2, and then.
But that's EFS everywhere else.
Yeah, what's the other side of that? Like, can you get that?
That's the main side too. That's what you're seeing from the street.
Yeah.
That's what I was just gonna suggest. Is there any way to say whatever side? I guess depending on how it's laid out on the street, you know, if there are concessions made, is it in the back where there's not as much traffic or views?
Problem is, we're gonna get highway traffic on this.
And we don't want to do that. We'd like to have a uniform
Yeah.
look to this. I think aesthetically, it's gonna look a lot better. Again, I
Okay.
think for seniors at, the first floor, class 1 or 2 material. I think I think the EVIS looks really nice, but I mean, it looks better than if you try to take that material up those levels. You just have a disconnect in the aesthetic. Brick to me is ugly,
Is there a? Nice word. So is there I'm trying to figure out a way. I guess I would like to see some sort of requirement that it can't just be 100% EPIS from level 1 up.
it would be like 85%.
Well, that's the thing, is it, what do we come up with, what that number is?
Elliot, the one that's right there by, the hotel right there by Smash Park too, is it on the back side of it?
They're all first story class one material.
Yeah, that, is it the Hyatt Place? Right behind it?
Yeah, same
Yeah,
deal.
there's just, yeah, I mean, it just has a little bit of brick going up.
Right, and that's the kind of thing that I guess I'm trying to shoot for, is it something similar to that, but not quite that extreme where there's more than just the glazing and ephes up above level one, I guess.
And we will have columns. I don't know if you can pull up our plans that we've submitted. But there are architectural details that are different materials than ethos.
Is that longboard siding?
Yeah,
that you're referring to?
I think that's Nichia, is what we end up using there, but I can't remember where that falls into your classes, but.
I think you called it an aluminum panel, which we would call a class 2, I believe.
That is correct. It's longboard siding, aluminum siding right now.
And again, so we have those architectural, we have longboard, but that longboard's about $70 a foot. So we're looking at Nichia or something that's gives the same appeal, but is different from a cost perspective. But we are trying to create that. And if you envision this with stone or the first floor, also keep in mind there's landscaping. There's a pool that will have nice fencing and landscaping around it. There's a lot of things to see from Hughes that will be different than what we're looking at here is pulling it up.
Yeah.
Facing the sports complex, the backside on Hughes and Chatham intersection be heavily covered because of the pool outside and the fencing and that kind of closing it back. And they don't have, kind of, I would say the south part of it covered with exposed views, which we have, what we're proposing at that first floor, class 1, class 2 material, again, with those columns of each providing some architectural contrast mixed in.
So from your guys' standpoint, nobody's really objecting to the class 1, class 2 below level 1.
No, I think that's the compromise that we're willing to make. Again, it adds to our budget, not a deal killer amount, but it adds a substantial amount to our budget, but we can make it work. And again, our purpose-driven development mindset is that, hey, we want to make a project that you guys are also proud of, right?
So if we were to say 20% class 1, class 2 above that, by the time you count windows and whatever else, would we be close?
We're looking at how windows and everything, I think it's around 85%. Class 1 from the second, third, and fourth floor. Is that right, Mitch?
15% of class 1,
15% class 1. yeah,
85% class 3 or class 4.
Correct.
That is correct. Yep, that is an accurate number.
Is it fair to ask for a little bit more than just class 1, or more class 1, class 2 than just the windows up above? I guess my biggest fear is like that Hampton Inn that is just class 1, class 2 down below and eaves up above, just looks like crap. And I know they don't try very hard on those. They intentionally don't do that.
So you could do a couple different things. One would be looking at what they've designed there would be saying that you have to do 3 different either materials or colors of class 3 and 4 material, right?
That's the city of Boyd with us.
So-
They wanted us, they didn't designate the material classes.
Just different.
They wanted different architectural components to it to give it some texture.
Yeah, that way you don't end up with the one you were referencing was like pretty much just white and off-white all the way up above, right? So that would be one way to do it. Percentage wise,
We're back.
given that you guys make a recommendation, then council has to do it. I would err on go with 85% if that works. And then let council have that deliberation, because I believe Jim would say if you guys said 60% and then council wanted to go down, then they would have to do a super majority vote. Which maybe you want to force them to do that, but
We're talking about 85% class 3 and 4.
4, yes.
So if they wanted to go to make that be 80%, they would have to have a super to do that.
Going less, they don't have to. If they went more, they would. Right?
Even for the lesser material, I guess in my mind, that seems backwards. That if they
Maybe
would-
it is.
they would
Maybe it's
go
backwards in my mind.
Lesser than 85%. Or 15, but we don't go less than 15% because
Right.
again, we have windows, you have metal components for the VTEC
But if-
units and all that.
Yeah, I see what you're saying though, AJ.
Procedurally though, do we need to say 20, then they can back it off to 15 without Jim without them having that super majority?
Yes, I think that's how it would work, right? Because you're going more, the higher, yep, the higher percentage you go, the more strict it is. So you guys would want to, or be at 85.
It's high rather than this low for the higher quality materials.
Yes.
We all seem very sure about that.
I would say just go with 85 and let them meet it out. I mean, that's what they're proposing here today. It seems like it kind of meets what you guys want. And then if they want to come back and say, no, we want to do 60% or whatever, then that's a super majority vote they have to make, and they can make that.
Do we need to specify those multiple types of materials or colors in there?
If that's what you'd want to do.
I think we want to,
Okay.
just to avoid some monotonous.
Okay. And then I guess we didn't really talk about it much because I don't think it's applicable to them, but we do limit class 4 to no more than 10%. You want to keep that,
What's a class 4 material?
like vinyl siding and like.
Nobody
The-
likes
the
it.
whole-
I think we're gonna say it's bigger than 10%.
You're safe.
Okay. Hey, Carson or Donna? You get anything else to add to that?
I think your numbers are fine with me. I mean, I do think they could up the ante on the anterior, or I mean, just the cover or walking into the building. Because you don't even realize that's the cover of the building, but,
Oh,
or the entryway, excuse me.
doesn't stand out in an elevation, it gets lost in that elevation. I think it's probably just more a product of the view than it is.
It's a product of the background, the white background.
I can actually speak to that a little bit. There is that is actually that kind of I think we have it as the Dover Sky that you're seeing on screen where the Fairfield by Marriott sign is. That is a metallic ephes. It's still ephes, but it's essentially troweled smooth and given a shinier coat to it. Actually has a really sharp look to it. That's what. So the ephes band, the ephes over the entryway is a different ephes than like your pebbled ephes that you're seeing on all the other facades.
Protection.
It'll be on the sun, will like, listen off the.
Luke, what do you need of us? You need a motion that we amend what you got written up here with what we're coming up with?
Yeah.
Okay,
So it's a motion to approve the recommendation with a change that the class 3 and 4 materials must, above the first level, must be at least 85%, no more than 85%.
That works. That'll get me.
And you would require at least 3 different materials or colors.
Just elsewhere in the code, it contemplates that different colored material, colors of the same material count as different. So just saying 3 different materials work
Okay.
for the code.
3 different materials.
that's pretty wrong.
Clear as mud.
I got it. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
It gets me what I need to do. I can help her do the minutes. We're good.
Well, either of these, any of these hotels have indoor pools.
We will not have an indoor.
Fairfield will not, Hilton will.
Oh,
Fairfield Inn and Suites, the one that's being proposed does not have an indoor pool, but some do.
Like, I just want to say, I know it's like, we travel for baseball and softball, and you know how many kids love playing in the pools?
We're gonna have an outdoor pool.
I know, but
The indoor pool creates a slew of other challenges. One, budgetary, 2. The layout of this particular pond is not conducive. It would create almost unplayable rooms on the west part of the building. Because where the roof line would come in and then the lower units, it would take 79 RPs and make 8 or 10 of them obsolete.
So I'll entertain that motion.
I will make that.
Thompson will second.
Hillary, would you call the roll, please?
Samuelson,
Aye.
Forst,
I,
Grant,
Aye.
Thompson.
Aye.
Reginator.
Aye. Thank you, everyone, for your input on that item. Item number 8 is a request from Forge Holdings LLC for approval of the final plat of Farms of Holland Plat 6. Now, Elliot, since items 8 and 9 are connected, do you want to handle them at the same time?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So we'll look at items 8 and 9. Also a request from Forge Holdings LLC for approval of the site plan for Forge Retail Center. Kind of in conjunction, but we'll handle them with separate motions.
We'll talk about the,
Brief us on that.
yep, I'll talk about the final plat first. It's relatively simple. What is referred to as a minor subdivision in our code. Basically, it's a lot split that doesn't have any public infrastructure involved with it. So all the sewer, water, and the stormwater infrastructure has been installed there for a number of years. So none of that needs to get built in conjunction with this. Fundamentally establishing ingress egress easements for access to the different lots on the site. We kind of did the same thing with with that land to the west of there last year. So that's all this is just a final plat that would approve that lot split. And then the proposed retail center is going to go on the north of the 2 parcels, and this is the layout that is proposed. It's about an 8,400 square foot building, about 4 different suites located inside. It's zoning compliant in all facets. It is located within the Farms of Holland planned unit development, which is why the setbacks might look a little bit different than in other places. Something that the PUD specifically calls out in this area is landscape buffer along the exterior, the street facing side of all parcels along Turnberry. So that's why the landscaping is located where it is. They've got the right number of plantings, parking spaces, etc. And the elevations are also attached to the staff report. And we worked pretty closely with the architect, Kurt, I believe, at Shift on getting these things tip top. And that's about all I have from the staff report. If there's any questions on either of those 2 items, happy to answer them. We do have representatives on behalf of the project here tonight.
Would the applicant or the applicant's representatives like to make any comment for the commission's consideration?
Elliot said unless there's any questions.
Perfect.
Does that 6 queue for parking or for the drive-through, does that meter requirements?
Oh, yes, thank you.
I thought I
Um,
wanted to heard that or something.
The requirement in the zoning ordinance by default everywhere in the city, regardless of use, is queuing space for 11. And they've requested that be reduced to around 6. And we think that that is appropriate because you look at the arrangement of the drive-through. If there's ever a backup, it backs up onto private drives rather than public streets. As far as that aspect of the site is concerned, we tend to err on the side of the user knows what it's going to be used for, and if that's going to work with their business plan, then great. If that were backing up potentially onto a public road, we would certainly take a different approach at evaluating that.
That road, that's just a continuation of the drive that is just to the east of the bank, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And just for the sake of remembering Judy, we can get that fire truck through all of that, right? Because it looks quite narrow over in that corner with the turn.
Yes, we got the fire review kind of wrapped up earlier today, and my understanding is that Jeremy is on board with the review that has occurred.
Any other questions?
If I'm not mistaken, it looks like there might be ephes or stucco on that building. Just bringing in a little laughter.
It's nice to get a few more commercial properties in that area and it's like it will be well done. Can the applicant share any information about what might be going into those locations?
I don't think so at this time.
That's okay.
I think there's a mixture of retail users.
Perfect. All right, any other deliberation? If not, I can entertain motions on items 8, which would be motion to approve the final plat of Farms on Holland Block 6.
Thompson will motion.
Corey, would you call the roll, please?
Forst,
Aye.
Aye.
Thompson,
Aye.
Samuelson, Reagan.
Aye. And then I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the site of Refill Center.
Second.
Hillary, would you call the roll, please?
Grant,
Aye.
Thompson.
Aye.
Samuelson,
Aye.
Forst,
Aye.
Reagan.
Aye. You all. Item number 10 is a city council update from David Lester. I don't think David can make it, so it's due tonight. Item number 11 is an economic development update from our economic development director, Holly. Holly's here with us.
I appreciate your consideration with the materials and the EPS. I know it's been a big discussion and we've done a lot of work. Now there's a lot of work on it too, and researching. As technology just changes at the speed of light, there's always something new to take a look at with the construction industry and building materials. And we want our businesses to be successful here, so we want them to be responsible with their budgets, and if they're meeting the intent of our requirements and quality and longevity and all of that, then it is worth discussing and it's worth considering how to help make those projects work, because we know we need them. We need the hotels and the sports campus for sure. So that's really good. Both projects are really good. I'm excited about them moving forward. And then you guys probably all saw the couple of the press releases that went out last week. So obviously Starbucks went out, which everyone knew about, but they weren't ready to formally release until then, which was fine. And then the press release for Michael Foods, which that's a huge situation. That's just phenomenal for the city of Norwalk. $146 million private investment. That's just fantastic. And the great thing is the original development agreement that we wrote with them 4 or 5 years ago when they built the original plant contemplated their future expansion. So we don't have to go back and do any kind of urban renewal area tip amendment or new incentives or anything like that. It's just all encompassed in there, and they'll just hit the ground running. 180 plus new jobs. I mean, it's a really good situation, especially on the taxable value side for the city. That we really need that right now. So pretty happy about that one. And we did a lot of competing again against Nebraska just to get that expansion. We competed against Nebraska originally to get them here at all. So we're beating Nebraska in a couple different ways. We're pretty happy about that. So the Turnberry development that you just looked at, that's also a great commercial development that's moving forward, and they do have some really good tenants signed up for that. So that's, I'm sure they'll announce those as soon as the agreements are signed and they're comfortable moving forward with it. But they do have some good tenants in Norwalk Central. So things are moving really really quickly there. You probably saw the turf going in today. I don't know if you guys saw that it's turning green out there, so that's pretty exciting. We also have an earth cam going up, so it'll be a 360 time-lapse camera that will go on a very tall pole right in the center of Norwalk Central, and it'll capture all of the activity happening in that entire area. And that is going to be paid for by DeNovo and another development group, just to have that out there so that we can have that footage and utilize it. And then they'll be able to keep that up there even after the construction is complete and people will be able to log in and see what's going on. It's just kind of a cool feature to have with all the other technology that's coming out there. That'll be first in the nation on the sports campus side. They'll announce that pretty soon, but that's really interesting. Some of the things that they're going to be test launching there for the country. Fairway will have their groundbreaking here sometime in May. We don't have the exact date yet, but I'd asked council to also send us any dates that absolutely do not work in May for them. And if you guys would like to do that as well, just email it over to Luke or myself and we'll make sure that we can schedule that groundbreaking around elected officials. That'd be great. In there. Let's see here, the certified site process. So we're 3 to 4 months into the application with the state of Iowa. We have about 141 acres that will be going into that program. If we get certified, we should know by June if we get that certification. But that will really take us up a couple of notches in the metro and the state with some of these larger developments, even kind of on that Microsoft and Google level of RFPs will be more eligible for. So that's good. Moving forward with the Dunn 40, which is what I call it, but it's Dunn Industrial Park, which is the 40 acres. It's under construction now with the site work. And the reason why it's a little bit confusing with the name down there is the certified site will also have the name Dunn in it, but it's all land that's connected down there. So hopefully we can kind of separate those out once that the Dunn Industrial Park gets developed with their first couple of buildings going up here this year. And they will have space in there too. So if you guys hear of any businesses that need that light industrial warehouse distribution type use, they'll have that space. They can build a suit and also just have it available and ready to go this year. Then let's see here. This coming Monday, we will have a big delegation of elected officials from Kosovo that Norwalk will be hosting. The council had asked us to host an event. So we don't know exactly what that's going to look like or where it'll be yet, but it'll be at one of our bigger businesses that have room for about 40 people. And we'll have a media event with it and everything. So if anybody's interested in attending that, it'll be Monday between 10:30 and 1. So just let me know if you're interested. And next council meeting, so May 4th, we will have several things on that agenda to move some of these projects forward. We will have an MOU for our second hotel. And I know we're kind of keeping the name quiet. Some people already know it somehow. It's not for me. But so we'll have the MOU on there for that so that they can move forward with their application for their flag. And then once that's kind of worked through to a certain point, we'll start the development agreement process and amending the urban renewal area for them as well. And then the Marriott, we will have a development agreement to amend on May 4th, which is diligence development agreement, because the land that the Marriott is purchasing is part of that Norwalk Central and Hughes Century Crossing land. And so that's all encompassed in this development agreement that we have with Diligent to pay them back on the infrastructure that they're constructing throughout the entire area. So what we're going to have to do is basically divert the TIF that could come from the parcel that Marriott is purchasing. We're going to divert that away from Diligent. So they're actually sacrificing that parcel's TIF to go towards the Marriott project to help get that anchor into that development. So we just have a really partnership with Diligent on all of these different moving pieces. So that'll make that thing forward. And those are kind of main right now, unless anybody has any questions about other projects.
I see there's a latest article on North Shore today.
Yeah.
I had to ask.
Yes,
There's been no movement.
So
And I had a conversation last week. I know there's potential interest. But
we're in conversations with the owner and representative, I guess, of the land. You know, we all still have interest in Norwalk entrance area moving forward and getting developed, but that article was initiated by the landowner. They reached out to the reporters and asked them to look at it and just kind of do a story and what the reporters are. So I would make some comments and the city's being, but wasn't one of our press releases, I guess, is.
Any new information of what might take the old Fairway location?
So there's a lot of interest in it. I think what will end up happening is it will either end up being something like a TJ Maxx type user, we're all hoping, we have lots of recruitment efforts out for stores like that, that we would meet their criteria. We don't meet a lot of those types of product-based retail criteria yet. But we think that we could lure a couple of brands, or it'll just be kind of parceled out inside the building for multiple types of users, if it's more on that professional office side. But I did ask Fairway if they would mind if we tried to get like an Aldi's or a Whole Foods.
I was gonna say, everyone wants an Aldi.
And he wanted to slap me across the face, so there's probably not gonna be another grocery store in that building, but there'll be something good.
Do you have confirmation about what's going on with the improvements to the old auto on 28?
No.
No.
The owner did come in and ask me what all they but they did ask about the improvement grant, which they would eligible for, everything else that the city side. And we haven't heard back yet, other than they wanted to do a car lot, and then it kind of went into a different type of business. I don't know if you guys have talked about it.
I think he's fixing it up right now, and so we don't know what he's doing there. So. Right, that he told, they came in and kind of talked through some stuff he wanted to do and what type of things would need to be brought to code, and that kind of steered him in a direction of what they're currently doing. Because once you start touching plumbing or electrical, then you have new systems you have to bring in sometimes, so yeah.
Holly was on the panel of the economic development forum or commercial development, real estate development.
Commercial real estate forum.
Last Wednesday, the business record put it on Wednesday mornings. Did an excellent job representing Norwalk there.
Thank you. And I can't even tell you guys how many developers and builders and brokers have reached out to us since that forum, because they're hearing about all this activity, they're seeing it, they're seeing these press releases, and everybody kind of wants a piece of the Norwalk action right now. So at least we're starting to get, I feel like now we're a little bit more in that, in the midst of the players of the metro, where we used to be kind of, we get asked if somebody else fell out, and now we get asked first alongside of city of Des Moines and some of those. So I think that that's a good telltale sign of Norwalk's reputation.
Yeah, hopefully your phone bringing more up.
Exactly.
I sat next to your counterpart from Altitude last week at an event. He didn't seem like he was making a lot of phone calls for people coming to town. They were just using phones.
Yeah, yeah. You just don't want to let anything slip through the cracks when there's so much activity. You want to make sure that, we're keeping up on all of it.
Any other questions for Holly? Thanks for sharing all that with us. Item number 12 is a community development update from Luke Harris. What do you have for us, Luke?
Sure, I'll let Elliot, when he goes, he can run through all of our current projects, but lots of stuff upcoming in addition to all the stuff we just worked through. Building permit wise, starting to pick back up again, so that's good. We're kind of back on track to having a normal year after a really concerning slow fall. So that's good. Continue to get interest in development projects around. Most recent one would be a kind of mixed use development that would be potentially 50th and Huntington Road area. So kind of the west end of the north side of the lake. And that the kind of pre-app discussion things we had, and AJ maybe wants to go a little bit more of this. There was a event last week about missing middle housing. Well, we plan on talking a little bit more with you all about that in some future meetings, but this type of development would bring that type of housing to the community. Basically trying to identify the non-single family and the non-apartment housing. How can we get more of that really mid-grade affordability for housing? So that's exciting. Elliot, you want to go through any other projects?
I can't remember if I mentioned at a prior meeting, we do have a site plan submittal in for the Fairfield Inn. So that's a thing that is officially in our office. I have a couple of rezonings actually PUD amendments, one brand new for the Dunn property. The only reason that we're doing that is just because of geometry. There's nothing crazy about what's going on down there, just getting buildings sited properly. We're just gonna go through the PUD process and address them that way. And then there's one in the legacy for the circle that I've been expecting for months and keep getting told every couple of weeks that they're still working on it. So that's coming at some point. Otherwise, New Century Crossing stuff is happening bit by bit. And then the retail structure that we approved tonight. We did have a car wash site plan that was, I don't even know if it came to P&Z. We did an amendment to Farms of Holland PUD for that, and rumor has it that is dead in the water now. Somebody else told me that it's still on the table, so yeah, it's, the water's muddy, let's just call it that. And then we also got a site plan application for an oil change business that has also pulled out of their project, so,
But something really cool is going in this place.
yeah.
The gas station or the C4 we modified a couple weeks ago, very movement on that part.
Site plan should be imminent within the month, I would guess.
Where's your house?
Kind of it.
Good. Our next meeting date will be May 8th, 2023 at 5:45 PM, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Thompson motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're done at 7:14. Thanks, Donna and Carson, for joining via Zoom.